joining us now is my broadcast partner on the Bills Radio Network. It is one Eric Wood joining us here on the show. And a little bit more removed, Eric, from the last game, since it was on Thursday night. But still in all, Matty and I have discussed this with some of our callers as well. Maybe the best thing to come out of that game was the diversification and what appeared to be the defining of roles in Buffalo's passing game. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was extremely impressed with the offense throughout the night. They kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit late. Maybe the execution wasn't quite there in the fourth quarter. Looked like they were going to run away with it for a moment, early in that third quarter, midway through the third quarter. But yeah, to me, to have guys like Shakir step up, Kincaid, second week in a row, Gabe Davis with some almost opposite plays from what we're used to seeing with him. They're throwing screens out to him because he's generally going to get the off coverage because they think he's running down the field on most routes, and that's what we've seen. And so they get it to him on the outside and let Diggs block for him. And I just loved, you said it, the diversity, but I love the game plan from Ken Dorsey. It started from the very beginning when they mix in the up-tempo, no-huddle offense. They kind of go in and out of a fast pace. Even if they're in no huddle, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to snap the ball right when you get to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they did. Other times they let Josh check at the line of scrimmage. And I had fun with people trying to decipher what he was saying at times and all that. And he made the joke afterwards as well. They're going to have to come up with some different terminology each and every week if they're going to continue to stay in that no huddle, because it was very audible. It was easy for even us to hear it in our headsets, much less on TV throughout the game. But super impressed with that. Also, we got to see some Josh Allen running, and Ken Dorsey dials up a QB draw, and I believe it was the second play of the game. And so they made sure to get that in early, and it was fun to watch them execute.
Yeah, I want to stay right there, Eric. After the game, we heard from Sean McDermott, and he said it was a focus to get Josh running the ball a little bit more, even in practice that week. So what does this offense do when Josh Allen can run the ball? What allows this offense to kind of operate at a higher level when he can run the rock like that?
Well, he's a weapon. He's the best player on your team, maybe one of the best athletes in the league at the quarterback position, maybe outside of Lamar Jackson. And so you let him make plays. Yes, there's some risk with Josh Allen running, but it's talked about fairly often that athletic quarterbacks generally get hurt in the pocket, not when they're on the move. They're in control when they're in space. They're these freak athletes. And so when he's in control on the move, we haven't seen him get dinged up throughout his career. And so, yes, they want to, fundamentally year after year, Josh become more of a true pocket passer and have that element as well. And they've been conscious about that this year. I mean, through 6 weeks, he had a third of the carries this year that he did in any previous year of him being in the NFL. So obviously, post Jets game, it was, we're not going to run with Josh as much. And look, the offense suffered a little bit because of that. They're not all the way there where they can play that style of ball and be a top flight offense. But when you add that in, it just puts so much pressure on the defense when you add in the quarterback run element. And we saw it on full display Thursday night.
And, they haven't gotten much notoriety. They rarely do unless they do something extraordinary. But special teams had a rough few weeks, Eric, as you know. And this game against the Bucs, Sam Martin hands 3 long fields in a row to the Buccaneers at the end of the game, which was pretty critical in creating long fields. You have Deontay Hardy on a long return, given a short field to the offense, and Tyler Baskett's back on track on kicks. I mean, it might have been their best special teams performance of the season all around, aside from a couple of penalties.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it started early with the Josh Norman hit on the kickoff coverage. Yeah. And so to me, Sean McDermott is always talking about complementary football. And when you have the injuries, especially the defensive side of the football, everybody has to be working in a complementary fashion. And we saw that on Thursday night when you can help out a defense that's undermanned at times because of the injuries by making them drive the full length of the field. You help out your offense, give them good field position. And look, what they had done the previous few weeks is part of the reason, we're trying to pick apart the offense. And is this defense too dinged up? Well, the Bills lose 2 close games where their special teams played awful. And so, uncharacteristically too, we've seen stellar special teams play under Sean McDermott with him as the head coach of the Bills. So it seems like they're back into form, and they really showed up in a big way Thursday night.
Dalton Kincaid has had his best game yet with 5 catches and 65 receiving yards. Finally got his first NFL touchdown. Where does he go from here now that Dawson Knox is not going to be involved in the lineup for the next few weeks? Where do you think he goes in terms of targets he gets and in terms of his role within this offense, since we saw a great game out of him against the Bucs?
Yeah, these last couple weeks he's been super productive, and that's what Bills fans assume was going to happen from the start of the season. You got a first-round draft pick and all the hype around him all offseason, and even played well in the preseason. Well, when you have 2 tight ends out there, and you have Diggs, and you have Davis, and you have so many weapons on offense, and then you're essentially splitting times the tight end, then you're not going to have that high of production. But these last couple weeks, with him being the main feature at tight end, we've seen what he's capable of. And he's got an incredible catch radius. I believe Josh Allen's perfect throwing him the football over the last 2 games. He makes contested catches. He's got a great feel for sitting in soft spots of zones. And when you talk about the Bills struggling against the blitz, against the Patriots, and against Jacksonville, having a very quarterback-friendly tight end that can sit in those soft spots, and even on his touchdown, on Dalton Kincaid's touchdown, he actually looks for the ball right away because he sees the blitz. And so he actually was hot on that play, and Josh could have gave it to him right then. Josh scrambles to his right. He has the wherewithal to convert his hot route into an over route and then catch the ball and get in for a touchdown. I've been super impressed with him since he walked in the door, and we're really starting to see him progress as a big-time NFL tight end here.
Yeah, definitely wise beyond his years for sure, knowing he's just a rookie. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, Eric, a couple of things come to mind here. First, when the team can get a lead, that pass rush looks a whole lot better. And then number 2, the coverage by Dane Jackson and Christian Benford for the most part in that game, or at least through the first 3 quarters, was maybe the most consistent that we've seen all season.
Yeah, they really held Mike Evans in check for a majority of that game. He has the touchdown, but that ball bounces off of Benford's head or off his helmet. And so to me, watching that game the other night, that's going to need to be the formula likely for the Bills moving forward. They're just so banged up on defense that if teams can stay balanced against them, at times they may struggle. But playing with a lead, considering who they have rushing the passer still up front, the athleticism they have on the second level of the defense with Bernard, they're getting more dime defense now. Ed Poyer put Rapp on the field as well. This is a defense that, like most defenses in the NFL, but they showed playing with a lead is going to be what they need to do. And so we were wondering if Sean McDermott may accept the opening kick, take the opening kickoff and receive if they won the toss. They still deferred, but getting up in games is really going to help out that defense. And I believe they're second in the NFL in sacks right now, and they've missed a ton of sacks in the pocket, not getting quarterbacks down. And so really they could even boost those numbers from there, just bringing guys down better.
Yeah, they tie for second right now in the NFL with 28 sacks. I want to ask you about the dime defense that they've been in a little bit more. There was a stat from the NFL that I think that said maybe in the first 5 games or 4 games, they didn't play any dime. And within the last 2 games, heading into this Bucs game, really, they had played 21 snaps within the last 2 games heading into the Bucs game, and we saw them use dime again against the Bucs, and I think it's something we will see going forward because Sean McDermott commented after the game and said, we're trying to figure out how to live life without Matt Milano, and moving Jordan Poyer into a role like this allows us to do that, where Jordan Poyer is kind of acting as a bigger linebacker there, not necessarily taking one off the field, but switching guys around within their roles. We know that Jordan Poyer does play safety when they're not in dime, but what do you make of their usage of that? Have you liked how it's looked, and have you liked what they've gotten out of it?
Yeah, I do. And to me, you're adding athleticism onto the field. Dodson has played fine when he's been in for Milano, but that's not someone you want to allow teams to target on third down in obvious pass situations. So you replace him with Poyer, and then Rapp goes back to Poyer's spot. And I've liked the looks they've done. So Sean McDermott kind of going back to his a little bit more of his Carolina days with these six up at the line of scrimmage looks, the double mug linebackers, and it's really tough to see who's coming. Well, then you have Poyer up there as well, and he's got some serious speed. We heard Eric Washington in the press conference earlier this week talk about how great Jordan Poyer is blitzing, and that's part of the reason that they have him in that role and maybe not have him on the back end and Taylor Rapp up closer to the line of scrimmage at that linebacker level. And so Poyer's enjoying this role, it appears, and the defense is extremely fast when you add Taylor Rapp on the field in those situations and get off one of your bigger linebackers.
All right, so let's spin this forward a little bit, Eric. I know it's only Monday and it's a long way until Sunday night, but the Bengals look like they're back to form with a convincing victory over the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran, and they do it with 2 interceptions on the defensive side and pressure on Brock Purdy almost all day long, and Burrow looks like Burrow again, going 28-32. We talked about the formula that we think is best for the Bills going forward to be successful. How realistic is it to mimic that same formula that they had last week against a team of this caliber?
Well, it's going to be more difficult, and at times it can be more difficult to run that no-huddle offense on the road as well because it's harder to verbally communicate out there, get all of your calls and checks communicated to everyone, and not being in the huddle. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that no-huddle they're running on the road in Cincinnati. And, yeah, the Bengals are up to 5-3, and at the beginning of the season they looked awful like they have kind of the past couple years. And, Burrow gets them going at some point, and then they're one of the better teams in the league again. And so, yeah, Burrow's playing good football right now. And then you got Chase, Higgins getting healthy. And so this is going to be a big-time matchup in Cincinnati with major playoff implications on the line.
Yeah, you mentioned Jamar Chase, T. Higgins there, and Tyler Boyd. What type of test is this going to be for Buffalo's defensive backs unit heading into a game where they're going to have to not shut down one guy, but multiple guys?
Yeah, this is going to be the toughest test they've faced in a few weeks. I mean, New England, Buccaneers, those aren't two formidable offenses in this league. And so this injury depleted defense that's now get a chance to get their legs under them a little bit with the 10 days rest and a little extra time game planning. And I'm interested to see, how it looks different this year defensively for the Bills under Sean McDermott against Cincinnati. Last year, coming out of the playoff game, there was a lot of criticism about the off coverage, not bringing enough pressure on Burrow, not getting around him enough. Well, they had Leonard Floyd. Hopefully Von Miller, uses this time, this extra rest, and we'll see, added improvement from him and in his road back from the ACL. But you're going to have to put some pressure on Burrow in this game. And then kind of back to our point before, if you can play with the lead and make them one-dimensional, that helps out tremendously when you're going against an offense like Cincinnati.
And speaking of that pass rush, with Vaughn getting more snaps, he got 27 last week. That's the most he's gotten in a game since his return. And we continue to see Greg Rousseau kicked inside for obvious reasons. You want to get your best pass rushers on the field, Eric. But going into a game like this one against Cincinnati, knowing that Burrow gets the ball out super fast, is that another reason to put Rousseau inside, just if not for anything, to just get his hands up in the passing lanes?
Yeah, I think so. And Jordan Phillips is 6'6" as well. So you get those guys both on the field. Ed Oliver, you want him out there as much as you can. He's one of the best players on your team playing incredible football right now. But if you get a lot of height inside, yes, you can clog up some of those passing lanes with Rousseau out there on the field. And so, yeah, I definitely think you could see some of that Sunday night.
The Bengals tie for fourth with 13 takeaways, and the Bills are up there too. They are third with 14 takeaways. So since they're right next to each other, 13 takeaways and 14 takeaways, how important does the takeaway battle become in a game like this when you have the opportunity to get an offense, both teams who have been and are within the last game operating at a high level? How important does the takeaway battle and turnover battle become in a game like this?
Yeah, it becomes enormous. When you're talking about two fairly even matched teams, I believe the spread came out at a point and a half. Might be up a little bit now, but regardless, you're talking about two evenly matched teams in the NFL. Show me after the game the turnover ratio and the red zone efficiency for both teams, and you'll probably see who's going to win this football game.
All right, Eric, thanks as always for the insight. Appreciate you joining us here a couple of days after the fact, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great week.